Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we've got an action-packed week for you. We are doing grief this week, and I know grief is like, oh, that's so depressing. Well, it's literally a stage of it. But we've got a lot of great things, and we're going to talk about grief beyond loss, and there's some great things that we are looking at when it comes to what grief is and what grief isn't. Grief is us moving on and finding new ways. So we can grieve the loss of jobs, we can grieve relationships. There's so much beyond just the loss of life and death. Where grief, we're looking at it every single day and not even realizing we're in a bereaved state. So this week we've got grief beyond loss and changes and understanding the grief response. We have attachment and how this reflects in loss and change. We have healing our familial wounds. So looking at our past and the capacity our family has. We put a lot of stress on our parents to be perfect, and best thing we can do is really understand that they are only human. And then how to grieve in increments. How do you hold space for yourself? As always, I've got key steps to live a happier and healthier life workbook. Get it on Amazon. It's dropped in the video description, as well as saying goodbye to bad brain, which has a lot of these principles in a more neuroscience-based format. You can also go to my website. I've got lots of blogs. After each one of these videos, there's going to be a free resource that you can access on my blog. I look forward to talking with you and hearing from you. Please hit that subscribe button and like and comment. I am here to support you. Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Hi, it's Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions, and we have a great topic today. We are talking about grief. We're talking grief beyond death, and really these hidden life transitions that put us in a bereaved state. So a lot of ways in which we get into bereaved states, and we often don't even know it. We're like, I'm not a depressed person, but if I really think about it, I've kind of just been lounging around. I've been scrolling on my phone. I've been laying in bed longer than I normally do. I'm over or under eating. I'm really not getting the sleep that I once got. And I get really weird. Am I depressed? Am I not? I don't remember being depressed. I don't remember this being a thing. If that is you, then you may be in a bereaved state and not even realize that there are things in our lives that are actual losses that we need to give recognition to. One of the things that we grieve and we kind of stay in a bereaved state longer than we think we should or could, anxious thoughts, is toxic relationships. We'll often, and we talked about trauma bonds last week, but often we will get into relationships that are trauma bonds. They are connecting us, and there is a comfort and predictability about the dysfunction that is happening. And when we're in those toxic relationships, we can trigger a lot of intense grief. And intense grief is because we are attaching to something safely, so we don't have to address what's actually happening. So you can think sometimes I don't know why I can't let this person go. Well, it's probably because there's an entanglement there. There's a complex trauma that is happening, and it's growing because you're not addressing what really needs to be addressed. And the stages of grief are not linear, as we know. They happen, and at any point in time, you can slide into one or all stages of grief. And what we find is the more that we find acceptance, the less time we spend in each stage, and the more quickly we go through them. But anniversaries, triggers, there's a lot of things that will pull us back into a grief state. And what we find is when it comes to complex trauma, we are actually, as soon as we get close to acceptance, shame and guilt holds us back in our grief and our trauma. The stages of grief is bargaining, denial, depression, acceptance, and I'm always forgetting one. Bargaining, denial, depression, and anger. Anger is the last stage of grief. And so as we are going in those stages, wherever we're sitting within them, it's important to know and accept. Awareness, acceptance, action are my 3 big A's, and getting into healing and a happier, healthier life. And so as you know, you accept, okay, well, I am grieving right now. It's not that I'm grieving the end of the relationship. That was a mess and that person was toxic. I'm grieving because I was connecting to something and I'm trying to find meaning and value out of it and trying to explore what that is. And coaching and therapy is a really great way to have that exploration. We can grieve in other ways too. Stress is the change in the change. It can be good, it can be bad, it can be indifferent. So getting a new job is stressful. And as we have that change, there are things that we are grieving and we're leaving behind. Just because we have a new and exciting experience doesn't mean that there is a comfort that we are letting go of. And so it's okay to have grief in a job change or a transition in your career. It's okay to feel like, what if I did something wrong? What if this isn't the path? What isn't the way? It's making sure that you have closures, and when you make that decision, you are going through the door and you are shutting it behind you. And when you don't, you can be sure that grief is hiding there. Shame and guilt will hold you right back to it, and it'll keep pulling you in there in the shoulda couldas. Parenting is another one that we have a lot of grief around, and it's okay. When we become a parent, and you can do this with your own parents, you have this expectation of what a parent is, and so you get typecasted in this one role, and you're grieving the loss of all the other roles. And so it's important to know that it's not necessarily a loss, but it's a lack of capacity. It's easier for us to grieve capacity than it is actual loss. And we do grief in increments, and we'll talk a lot about that towards the end of the week, is grieving in increments. But what we're looking at is capacity. Like, we're not going to be going out to the club anymore. One, because at a certain age, it's a little weird, like, find a new hobby. But two, like, we have humans that we are responsible for. Some of the things we did when we weren't a responsible adult are things that are not going to be like now. And it's okay, but understand your growth, find closure with that growth. Don't sit there and suppress it or overcompensate for it, which is what we're doing. We're not grieving the way we need to. So we get into these escapist, avoidant acts so that we don't have those distressing thoughts or feelings. It's all about awareness. And when you know that you are grieving, then you let go of a lot of shame and guilt. You find a label which helps you to let it go and know what you want to do with it. And then coming back to parenting, we have kind of grieving your identity as an active parent for those who are empty nesters. So your kids have gone off, you succeeded. The whole job of a parent is to have your kid move out of the house. Like, that is the job. And you succeeded, but now you feel this huge sense of loss. Like, everything surrounded kids, everything was about their life, and now that it is not there, what do I do now? And there's a lot of shame and guilt, entangled in shoulda, coulda. Like, I always said I wanted to go and read a book. Now I have a book and I'm bored. I don't want to do it. Depression is a stage of grief. It's understanding, it's finding capacity for it, it's letting it go so that you can find agency for yourself, close those doors, and be okay with what the here and now presents to you. There's also grief amongst our relationships. Sometimes we have phases of friends. Friends will come and go, and they'll have phases. And there are times where we feel lonely, or we feel like we're in an insightful place, or whatever the case may be, and we start to look back on our past relationships and our past friendships, and we start to kind of shoulda, coulda, what ifing those relationships. And it's okay to be okay with not having relationships. You don't need to be lifelong friends with every single person that you've ever met. There will be people who have very significant roles in your life for a very certain period of time in your life, and then things happen, and it's okay that you don't have that connection like you once did. It's grieving the capacity people have to be in your life, and again, letting it go. Shame and guilt will hold you into your grief and your trauma. It keeps you from being able to be happy and successful, and what you want is to let all of that go so that you can find a wholeness and presence with the here and now. Another grief is moving to a new city. Our old community becomes so important to us, and there's so much identity that comes with our culture and our and the communities that we live in. And so there can be a lot of grief, even though we're excited about a new opportunity. Maybe it's something we really wanted to do. I mean, New York City calls a lot of people in life. It calls them. They want to be there. They want to be a part of it. And sometimes their life aligns where they're able to have that experience, and sometimes their life doesn't align with it. And when it does or doesn't, there can be this, is this the right decision? Is this really where I need to be? Should this be what I do? Should I stay and do something that is safer? It's normal to have that distress. And when that distress comes on, grieving through all of the pieces, knowing that you made that decision and you walk through the door and you shut it, is a very important part of letting go. And lastly, we need to grieve in order to have personal growth. We need to grieve in order to have personal growth. And what that means is that we must let go of everything in the past in order to be able to move forward. As we build insight, as we move closer and closer to what our values and beliefs are, as we're looking for that internal validation, not external, we will grieve certain parts of our lives. We will grieve the capacity that we have or we don't have. We will let go of a sense of perfectionism. There are things that we must do to let go of it so that we can embrace our new life, so that we can have personal growth, so we can understand what perceived expectations we're following and what is our own values and beliefs, our own connection to our realized success. And so, like I said, grief is complicated, but it comes up in our lives over and over again. And the only way to be successful is to let go of your past and really fully embrace who you are in the present, so that you can make the steps you want to be who you want to be in the future. I am Jennifer Evans with Empowering Wellness Counseling Solutions. Thank you so much.